Biblical scholars have argued for years about the location of these holy sites. Now, one man says he might have found them.
For thousands of years, the world has been obsessed with the name of a mountain, Mount Sinai. People say it was the place where Moses received the 10 Commandments, where the story of the Exodus changed the course of history. But it's strange. Despite such lofty claims, no one has been able to definitively establish where the real Mount Sinai actually is. The Egyptian Sinai? Or something else? And this question has been a source of debate for centuries among scholars, travelers, and religious traditions. Now imagine, what if someday some data suddenly emerges that turns this debate upside down? That's exactly what happened in 2025. A team sent a drone, and it wasn't just any drone. It was equipped with a 100 times more powerful ground-penetrating radar, which could see the mountain's inner layers. But the twist is that the areas scanned are such blocked zones in Saudi Arabia that the outside world barely gets even high-quality video and photos. Yet, what the scan revealed was much larger than people expected. Straight lines beneath the rock, buried rooms, and geometric patterns, something nature doesn't normally create. The question now isn't whether something was found. The question is, who made this, and why? What did the drone see that has baffled archaeologists? So be sure to watch the video until the end, as the real twist is yet to come. To understand the details, subscribe to the channel. Such research and mystery-related videos are rarely available on this channel. The most remarkable thing about the drone mission was that, this time, it wasn't just flying over the mountain to take photographs. Many people had previously seen this area, taken photographs, and made predictions from a distance. But this time, it was different. For the first time, data was being collected that could be understood not just with the naked eye, but by looking underground. And the drone's ground-penetrating radar could scan layers beneath rocks, meaning it could detect things that aren't even visible on the surface. When the scan began, the hope was to uncover some common natural patterns, like rock layers or ancient geological changes. But what emerged took a completely different turn. Not just the surface, but also structures buried beneath were revealed. In some places, straight lines were visible. In others, room-like voids. And, most surprising, some geometric patterns emerged that nature doesn't normally create on its own. These indicated some kind of organized structure, as if something had once been built here and had been buried under sand and stones over time. As the data was analyzed, one location began to emerge repeatedly. The clues pointed to northwestern Saudi Arabia. 2 mountains, in particular, were repeatedly mentioned: Jabal Makla and Jabal al-Lawz. These are the same areas that some had previously suspected, but the lack of concrete evidence had prevented further progress. Now, for the first time, it seems that concrete information is emerging, replacing mere speculation. The biggest question now arises: if this location is truly so important, why? Why is this mountain in northwestern Saudi Arabia receiving so much attention? A key reason for this is an ancient biblical reference. In the book of Galatians, the Apostle Paul clearly stated that Mount Sinai was in Arabia. Many initially considered this merely symbolic, but some scholars now suggest that Paul was referring to the actual geographical location at that time, that Sinai may be located beyond Egypt, in Arabia. This adds another important element: Moses' stay in Midian. After fleeing Egypt, Moses settled in Midian, east of the Gulf of Aqaba, in what is now northwestern Saudi Arabia. It was there that he experienced the burning bush. And if Moses had already lived in that area, it becomes easy to understand that when the Israelites left Egypt and crossed the sea during the Exodus, their path would have led in the same direction, from Egypt to Arabia. From this perspective, the route seems straightforward and logical, Egypt to crossing the sea to moving towards Arabia. The matter goes beyond written references, as some physical clues also point to this area. The rocks on the peaks of mountains like Jabal al-Lawz appear strangely black, as if they were once burned by intense heat, while the surrounding mountains are made of ordinary granite. Some people associate this with the scene described in Exodus, where God descended upon the mountain, causing smoke to rise and the mountain to shake. In this same area, a rock is also reported to be clearly split in two, with a smooth channel-like structure between them, as if water once flowed through it. And this is significant because the area is extremely dry today. Yet, the surrounding area shows traces of strong water flows, suggesting that large amounts of water once flowed here. This is linked to the story in Exodus 17, where Moses struck the rock, and water gushed forth to quench the thirst of the thirsty people. Structures that shouldn't exist. The story becomes even more interesting when we examine not just the mountain itself, but the surrounding areas. If this is indeed the area where the Israelites once camped, there should be some nearby markings that indicate a large temporary camp. And that's what makes this place unique. A large open plain appears in front of the mountain, large enough to accommodate thousands of people. The story of Exodus also tells of people camping in front of the mountain, and the geography here seems to match that description. Additionally, long lines of stones have been observed in the area. These stones appear to mark a boundary. Some believe these may be the same boundaries mentioned in the Bible, where people were warned not to touch the mountain. If so, they may not be mere stones, but rather a reminder of some ancient law or ritual. Another object that has been discussed is a stone platform. It appears to have been built by humans rather than naturally occurring. Some associate it with the altar Moses built at the time of the covenant. Nearby, another simple structure is said to be associated with the golden calf incident. Furthermore, figures resembling cows and bulls are said to be carved on the surrounding rocks, and these engraved images remind some of the time when the Israelites worshipped the golden calf. If these are indeed from that period, they may not just be art, but also the mark of a religious event. And then a single standing stone pillar appears. Some believe it could be one of the 12 pillars mentioned, erected to symbolize the 12 tribes of Israel. But there is another side to every story, and there is one here. While some link these traces to the actual location of Mount Sinai, professional archaeologists and historians disagree. They say that it is not easy to establish such a significant historical identity based on just a few similar traces. First, they take a different view of Paul's statement that Sinai is in Arabia. They argue that during Paul's time, the Roman Empire had a province called Arabia Petraea, and it included the Sinai Peninsula. This means that when Paul said that Sinai was in Arabia, he may not have been referring to the Arabian Peninsula as it is today, but rather to the political boundaries of that time. Furthermore, some ancient Egyptian writings also mention the southern Sinai region. They mention places called Thihat, or Safet, which some linguists believe to be an early form of the name Sinai. These references predate the time of Moses, suggesting that Sinai may have a much older connection to Egypt. Here another major argument is that if an event like the Exodus had actually occurred in this region, concrete remains from the Bronze Age should have been found, such as pottery, tools, writing, or traces of permanent settlements. However, such clear evidence has not yet been found. This leads scientists to suspect that the objects depicted may belong to different cultures from later times. As for the burnt black rocks, scientists consider this a natural phenomenon. They say that the surface of stones in desert areas may darken due to heat, wind, and chemical changes. Similarly, Split rocks may be the result of geological pressure and cracks formed over time. There are also differing opinions regarding the long lines of stones. Some experts believe that these may not be marking sacred boundaries, but rather simple fences or paths built to contain animals. Such stone circles were common in many ancient nomadic societies. And technology changed everything. For a long time, this debate remained mired in arguments and speculation. Some said this was the right place. Others said it wasn't. But real change began when technology began to break down old boundaries. A prime example of this was seen in 2012 in the Angkor region of Cambodia. A technology called LiDAR was used there, which can scan over dense forests to map hidden objects beneath the ground. People thought there were just a few old temples, but LiDAR revealed an entire hidden city, a network of roads, building plans, and everything that had been buried beneath the trees for centuries. This discovery made the world understand that just because we can't see something doesn't mean it's not there. Sometimes history lies hidden underground, waiting for the right technology. With this very thought in mind, a new step was taken in 2025. This time, a drone was sent to survey the mountains, equipped with a more powerful ground-penetrating radar than ever before. This technology could peer deep into the rocks, not just the surface. Where previously only guesses were made, real data was now available. The information revealed after the scan focused attention on a particular mountain. After exploring various sites, it was realized that the patterns found at one particular spot matched the others. These didn't seem like typical geological formations, but rather indicated the presence of something systematic there. But this discovery also raised a new question. If technology is now pointing to this place, did anyone know about it beforehand? Was this place only discovered now, or had it been hidden in someone's memory for centuries, without any concrete evidence? Now another interesting point arises. Did this place become sacred after Moses' arrival, or was it already considered sacred? Consider the incident of the burning bush. When Moses approached the strange fire, the voice he heard didn't say, "This place will now be holy." Instead, it said, "Take off your shoes, for the ground you stand on is holy." The meaning is clear. The place was already considered sacred. This means that Horeb, known as the Mountain of God, must have been revered in some way even before Moses. Moses did not create a new sacred site, but rather visited one that was already considered special. This also aligns with the period of Moses' life when he lived in Midian. After fleeing Egypt, Moses sought refuge in Midian, where he married into the family of Jethro. Jethro was not just an ordinary person, he was considered a priest of Midian. This means that Moses was living among a society where religious traditions and an understanding of sacred sites already existed. Moses roamed the region as a shepherd, but it's hard to believe he was wandering in completely unknown lands. He lived with people who understood the spiritual and cultural identity of their region. And it's possible that a place like Horeb was already considered significant within a local tradition, and Moses arrived there while living within that tradition. Over time, not just the mountain itself changed, its identity also changed. Initially, the Christian tradition didn't have a strong tradition of visiting holy places. People focused more on spiritual truths, not on any specific physical location. But a major change occurred in the 4th century, when the Roman Emperor Constantine embraced Christianity. This led to the first attempts to identify and preserve biblical sites. This is where history took a new turn. Constantine's mother, Empress Helena, embarked on a journey to discover sacred sites around 326 CE. Her goal was to find places connected to biblical stories. During this period, monks and ascetics began gathering near Jabal Musa, an Egyptian mountain, and they believed that it was here that Moses had seen the burning bush. Gradually, a tradition developed around this place, regarding the valley as the place where God spoke to Moses. Over time, this tradition grew stronger. By the 4th century, a small monastic community had settled there. These people welcomed travelers and kept alive the story of the bush, which they considered sacred. Later, in the 6th century, Emperor Justinian further cemented the site's importance, and he ordered the construction of a fortified monastery here, known today as St. Catherine's Monastery. This monastery became not just a religious site, but also a center of history and knowledge. Its library, considered one of the oldest in the world, preserved ancient biblical manuscripts and early Christian writings. The complex also features the Well of Moses, which is believed to be the place where Moses first helped the local people. Now, this is where the biggest puzzle begins. If the Israelites truly stayed near a mountain, camped there, and spent an entire year there, then why is there no concrete evidence of this? Why don't we see any cities, any walls, any permanent buildings? The answer lies in the kind of life they lived. The Israelites were not a permanent civilization at that time. They weren't city builders. They had neither permanent houses, nor temples, nor fortifications. They were a mobile community, shepherds, families, out in tribes, who lived in tents and moved according to the weather, water, and grazing. According to the Bible, they stayed near a mountain for about a year. In the context of history, a year is a very short period, especially when no permanent construction was made. In such a situation, the traces left behind are also very faint. Experts say that such nomadic groups typically leave 4 types of traces, all 4 of which are easily erased over time. And the first is the stones and ashes from the hearths. A circle of small stones is formed daily for cooking, but wind blows away the ashes. Rain or time scatters the stones, and animals trample the ground. All of this disappears within a few seasons. The second mark is the small depressions from tent poles. These leave very faint marks in the ground, difficult to discern. Over centuries, soil erosion, wind, and sand fill these depressions, and they disappear completely. Third, broken pottery fragments. Nomads don't keep many possessions, so their pottery is limited. Once broken, these fragments are scattered widely. Over time, they mix with fragments of other people's pottery, so making it difficult to associate them with any specific group. Fourth, garbage or toilet pits. Organic matter decays quickly in open spaces. In the desert, bacteria, insects, and time combine to completely destroy them. After thousands of years, no visible traces remain. And the biggest factor is the desert itself. The sand constantly shifts, the wind covers everything, and time erases every trace. The desert allows nothing to remain permanent. Therefore, even if a nomadic community stayed there for a while, it's quite natural for evidence to gradually disappear. Simply put, the absence of evidence doesn't always mean nothing happened. Sometimes the desert itself hides history. Now another major question arises. If such a major event as the Exodus had actually occurred, wouldn't Egypt have mentioned it? After all, Egyptian civilization is known for its inscriptions and records. Oh, but here's an important point to understand. Most Egyptian records were created not to document history, but to demonstrate their power. In other words, they weren't a complete picture of reality, but rather a form of propaganda. Egyptian monuments and writings always depicted the pharaoh's victories, greatness, and power. Events such as defeat, humiliation, or weakness were often deliberately ignored. See, historians have observed numerous instances where Egypt simply didn't record events that were embarrassing to itself. For example, The Hyksos were a foreign ruling group that once occupied large parts of Egypt. They were later expelled, leading to one of the major political upheavals in Egyptian history. However, direct records from that period are rare. Most of our information about this event comes from later traditions and external sources. Similarly, the example of Akhenaten is even more glaring. He was a pharaoh who abandoned the worship of traditional gods and embraced a new religious ideology. After his death, succeeding rulers attempted to erase his name and memory. His statues were destroyed, his inscriptions were removed, and he was virtually erased from history. These examples make it easy to understand why Egypt did not record every event in its history, especially those that would damage its reputation. And if something like the Exodus had occurred, involving a mass exodus of slaves, disasters, and military defeats, it would have been a major embarrassment for Egypt. Therefore, the lack of records is not surprising. There have been times in history when entire populations seem to suddenly disappear. But in reality, they don't always completely disappear. They simply lose their identity. A prime example of this occurred in 722 BCE, when the Assyrian Empire conquered the northern kingdom of Israel. The most talked about topic after this incident is the 10 lost tribes. Assyrian rulers had a specific policy. They would expel conquered people from their homes and settle them in remote areas. The purpose was clear: scatter people so that they would gradually forget their old identity, language, and traditions. When a community is separated from its origins and mixed in different places, its identity begins to fade over time. This is what happened with these 10 tribes, and they were settled in different areas where they assimilated with the local population. Some adopted new languages, some new customs, and gradually their distinct identity was lost. These people did not disappear. They simply became absorbed into a different name and culture. Now, if we consider this in relation to the story of the Exodus, an interesting parallel emerges. During the Exodus, the Israelites left Egypt and went into the desert. They left behind no major cities, no strong buildings, or any lasting traces. They disappeared geographically from sight. On the other hand, in the Assyrian exile, people were removed from their land and absorbed into other societies, that is, they disappeared at the population level. In a way, one disappearance was geographical. People moved to areas where their traces were erased. The other was cultural. People remained, but their identity gradually vanished. Now, the role of the Midianites becomes crucial in understanding the picture. And this was the community among whom Moses spent a large part of his life after fleeing Egypt. If the Exodus story is to be connected to the land, it is essential to understand who lived in this region at that time and how they lived. Excavations in northwestern Arabia reveal that the Midianites were present here. They are not identified by large cities or grand buildings, but by small, temporary settlements. These people were not completely permanent, camping in different locations according to the season and needs. Such seasonal camps were often established near water sources or trade routes. A key evidence of their presence is the distinctive, colorful pottery. These vessels featured red or brown designs with lighter colors, reflecting geometric patterns. And these vessels are distinctive and have been found in numerous locations. This suggests that the Midianites moved around the region and carried with them a distinctive cultural style. In addition, excavations have revealed signs of copper working. Smelting residue, such as slag and furnace fragments, have been found in some sites, indicating copper mining and processing. This suggests that the Midianites were not just pastoralists, but also organized groups that utilized resources. The animal bones also confirm this lifestyle. Remains of sheep, goats, and cattle indicate that this society was based on animal husbandry. Furthermore, small water harvesting systems have been discovered, such as stone pits or channels designed to capture seasonal water. All of this suggests that they had developed methods for living in arid terrain. Most interestingly, all of these activities are dated to approximately the 15th to 13th centuries BCE. And this is the period traditionally associated with the possible period of the Exodus. This raises another intriguing question. Did this mountain become sacred only after the arrival of the Israelites, or did it hold special significance even before that? Some scholars believe that the clue may lie in its name itself. One theory suggests that the word Sinai may be related to Sin, the moon god of ancient Mesopotamia. At that time, the high mountains and peaks were often considered significant for sky-related worship. Another theory connects the name to the Hebrew word Seneh, meaning thorn bush, the same bush seen burning in the story of Exodus. Some others attribute it to the name of a desert area, reflecting the surrounding geographical identity. While the meanings may vary, each likely suggests that the site may have already held some cultural or religious significance. Specific physical evidence found at the site also supports this view. Stone platforms and structures appear to be unnatural in some locations. Some interpret these structures as ancient altars or ritual sites. Animal bones have also been found nearby, suggesting some form of religious or group activity. The phenomenon of the burning bush can also be viewed from a natural perspective. Thorny bushes found in the desert, such as acacia, are oily and can sometimes catch fire due to intense heat or lightning. Such fires may seem unusual to onlookers, especially when the bush doesn't completely burn down, but appears to be burning. It's not impossible for lightning to strike desert areas or for fires to suddenly erupt during dry weather. Now that we piece together the story, the picture begins to become clearer. On the one hand, there's modern technology, like drones and ground-penetrating radar, that is revealing things that have been hidden underground for centuries. On the other hand, we understand the reality of a nomadic lifestyle, where people don't build cities or erect walls, and so their traces fade over time. Then Egypt's silence also tells us something. If an incident was against their honor, it wasn't considered necessary to record it. And there are many examples in history where entire communities disappeared, but never truly vanished. For example, the lost 10 tribes, who didn't suddenly disappear, but instead, over time, assimilated into other places and cultures. Putting all this together, one thing becomes clear. Sometimes the absence of evidence isn't a sign that nothing happened. Sometimes people simply disintegrate, change identities, or live in environments where time erases their traces. And today's technology may be helping us recognize faint traces that were previously invisible. And it reminds us that disappearance isn't always an absence. The desert isn't empty. It just hides stories the world isn't yet ready to understand. If you enjoy such mysterious and true-to-history stories, subscribe to the channel now to be the first to know about upcoming revelations and new discoveries.